Kiive Audio has been on a roll lately, and it looks like they're keeping that streak going with the release of 3 new plugins in collaboration with hardware company Audioscape. Let's check them out. So first up, let's take a look at my favorite of the new bundle, the V-Comp. This is based on Audioscape's modernized take on the famous gate stay-level compressor from the 1950s. Let's throw it on the drum bus of a track I'm working on and run through some of the controls. First, let's push up the input and get some compression happening. And as you may have noticed, we have auto gain, which you can turn on and off up here, which just makes things so much easier so you don't have to jump back and forth between the input and output knobs while finding the sound you're looking for. Now let's take a look at the mode switch. You can kind of think of this as your attack control, with single being a slow attack, double being medium, and triple being fast. But there is more going on than just that with this switch, and all the attack and release settings are extremely program dependent on this compressor. There's also an off setting, which bypasses the compression, allowing you to use this as a color or distortion unit. And then right below that, we have our release control. Let's hear the range that this gives you. The slowest release setting is supposedly how the release was on the original gate stay level, and I am so glad they added faster settings. I've never used an original stay level, but I've used quite a few other tube compressors from that time period, and a lot of them are quite slow and sloshy like that, which can be really cool in the right context, but also quite limiting to what it works for in modern music. So bringing those cool old vintage sounds into the modern era is much appreciated. Then we've got this stock/drive switch. This basically drives the unit harder, adding a lot more color and grit. Oh, and did I mention that this is basically 2 plugins in one? With the style switch, we can flip between modern and vintage, which are emulations of 2 different hardware versions of this compressor that Audioscape makes. The vintage mode is a bit slower and kind of grabbier, while the modern mode is much more upfront and aggressive. And then up in the menu bar, we've got some handy controls like sidechain high-pass filter to keep the compressor from reacting too much to the low end, a mix knob for easy parallel compression, linkable in and out knobs for easy gain staging, and one of my favorite features that Kiive does, the THD knob. This lets you control how much saturation you're getting from the compressor. If you like the compression, but it's getting too crunchy for your taste, just pull the knob down. Or alternatively, you can crank it up and get a ton of distortion out of it. I've been loving this thing on drums, on overheads, room mics, and on the drum bus in parallel, as well as on bass and vocals. Let's check out a quick vocal example before moving on to the next plugin.
I'm trying to distract myself, but I can think of nothing else. Want you to pick me off the shelf, dust me off, take me home. We can do a little something else. Still I know I'll fuck this up. Make out with your roommate or accidentally stand you up, and I know that it's just my luck. Some other girl will come along and they'll just gobble you up. I'm trying to distract myself, but I can think of nothing else. Want you to pick me off the shelf, dust me off, take me home. We can do a little something else.
Next, let's check out the Golden58 tube preamp emulation. This is great for adding some tube-style color and grit to your tracks. Let's once again throw it on our drum bus and check out what it can do. The first thing I want to check out is the line/mix switch. This changes both the amount of saturation as well as the sound of that saturation. Line mode has a lot less saturation overall, so it can be great for just adding a little bit of subtle color to your tracks. And then mic mode is much more aggressive, allowing you to get into full-blown distortion territory. Let's take a listen to both of these, as well as see how much range we've got with the gain knob. Then we've got a couple more tone shaping options available to us. The first is the full/voice switch. This adds a super gentle high pass filter to help clean up the low end a little bit. Then we have the bias knob. As you bring it up, it both increases the low end and adds extra saturation. Cranking it up can be a great way to add some extra body to a thin source. Or you can pull it down to help clean up the low end of something that's already plenty thick sounding. Then we've also got an output control, a polarity switch, and a link-unlink switch, so you can control the left and right side independently. Or you can switch it to mid-side mode and apply different saturations to the mids and sides. This definitely isn't the most versatile saturation in the world, but I think that's okay. This just has a sound, and once you get to know that sound and what you like it on, it makes it super fast and easy to dial in, as opposed to something like FabFilter Saturn, which I also love, but sometimes I find myself getting a little bit lost in all the options. Both totally have their place, so if you're looking for something fast and easy that has a super cool sound, this one is worth checking out. If you're looking for the ultimate saturation that'll do everything, this probably isn't for you. And last but not least, let's take a look at the XL-305R. This is based on the Mic Mix Master Room Reverb, a hardware spring reverb from the 1980s. And actually, this plugin is another 2-in-1, because it has an emulation of both Audioscape's recreation as well as the original unit via the mode switch, giving you two different flavors of this very unique style of reverb. And it really is a unique sound. These units have 12 springs in them, as opposed to the 2 or 3 you would find in most spring reverbs, which gives it a much fuller, lusher sound, which kind of sits somewhere in between a typical spring and a plate sonically. Let's throw this on a lead guitar line and take a listen to the two different modes. Now let's pull the mix knob back a bit and mess with the 4-band EQ to shape the sound. You can also unlink the channels if you wanted to EQ the left and right sides differently. That could be a cool way to create a little bit extra width. Then you have a mono drive button, which allows you to choose between true stereo and mono to stereo operations. In this case, our guitar is already mono, so it won't do anything, but that's a handy feature to have. And then we've got a mono return button to, well, make it mono. There's also a width control in the menu bar, allowing you to either widen the signal even more or bring it in a little bit tighter if it's feeling too wide for you, but you don't want it to be completely mono. Next to that is a pre-delay knob, and that's pretty much it. Much like the Golden58 plugin, this isn't meant to be the most versatile plugin out there. Like, I wouldn't want this to be my only reverb, but it has a very cool and unique sound that just works as soon as you bring it up without a ton of tweaking. But yeah, if you want to try out any of these plugins for yourself, you can head on over to kiiveaudio.com and download the free trials. And if you want to check out some more of my favorite plugins, check out this playlist. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.